thanks a lot for showing up. We figured if anything is going to capture people's attention on a Friday night, it's got to be a wearable technology. And it's one of the more fascinating topics. So my name is, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Max Krasnik. I'm responsible for Intel Capital investment activities in Russia and CIS. Our guest tonight is Rob Rukert, my colleague who's based in California and is responsible for Intel Capital investment activities in the wearables and the new devices space. I'd like to get your creative juices flowing, since a lot of you are involved in wearables yourselves. I'd like to start with a brief announcement of a contest sponsored by Intel called Make It Wearable. So Masha, please.
We are at the beginning of a new era. Personal computing is being redefined as the technology around us becomes a part of who we are. This is the wearable revolution.
We've put technology on our bodies to make ourselves better, to find a way to kind of move through the world and extend ourselves.
Wearables are a manifestation of the tip of an iceberg.
These devices present an opportunity to integrate the digital into the physical.
With Make It Wearable, Intel will foster the conversation about wearable tech and inspire the next wave of voices and innovation that will drive the movement forward.
Together, we have the potential to change the world, to fuse together innovation and technology and really push this emerging category forward.
We have chips that do amazing things. We have software that can do things people never imagined. It's really a matter of just having the imagination to put those together.
With Make It Wearable, you can bring your idea to the world and find the support to make it a reality.
What's interesting is the way people can appropriate what's out there and remake it into what they need.
There's some things that are really going to fundamentally change the way people interact with the technology.
Wearables are about life. There's the potential of making people work together better.
Make It Wearable is an opportunity for you to join the conversation about the future of wearable tech and to put your idea to the test.
It's an extremely difficult challenge. What can we create that people will love?
We want to harness the best people on the planet and create something which blows the world away.
Can you join the next slide, please? So, what the contest is about, I mean, for those of you who are involved in or have an idea about wearable or a new device, Intel has this contest where we try to inspire and help young entrepreneurs to come up with great ideas and develop new products. Rob here is, by the way, on the jury, so you'll have an opportunity to ask some additional questions directly to him. What we're trying to do is, Masha, can you do the next slide? Yeah. So the grand prize is $500K for the winner, for the finalist. You still have time to submit your idea or a project. And for the winners, we'll be helping with introductions and access to our community in the US and elsewhere, in addition to the cash prize. With that, and without further ado, I'd like to hand it over to Rob, who, as I mentioned, heads up our wearable investment. Rob is one of the longest serving employees at Intel Capital. He's been with Intel Capital for more than 10 years. All right. He's invested in a lot of great companies, had very successful exits, selling his portfolio companies to leading corporations such as American Express, Cisco, and others. And I think it's a great opportunity for all of us here to be able to hear from Rob directly on where wearables are headed. Rob?
Thank you. Well, you saw the exciting video about really the idea of having innovation and being able to create whatever we want in hardware. I think that's definitely the case. I liken today in hardware to the way the late 90s was in software, when you went from being able to write big, long programs and put it on a CD and send it out to an internet where anybody could write anything and try very quickly to put something out there to see if it works. I think in the hardware world, 5 years ago, it was very difficult to finance and put together and manufacture a hardware device. Today, it's a lot easier. I shouldn't say it's very easy, but it's a lot easier than it was 5 years ago. Now with 3D printing and with Kickstarter and Indiegogo, people can try things out. They can see if the consumer likes it, and then they can iterate quickly. But before I talk a lot about where we're at today, I want to kind of bring you back from where we've come in the last 5 years since 2009, and really explain why I think right now is very interesting for wearable tech. Humor me with a few graphs. I'll go quickly through these. But if you look at this graph, this is the smartphone market segment share. So if you think about how everybody knows this, right? The world has been taken over by smartphones. Over the last 5 years, it's just been more and more people using smartphones as their primary device, or just more smartphones in general. If you look at internet access, devices that have internet access, in 2009, a fixed line, or 2005, a fixed line was everything. Mobile started coming into play and having some market share around the year 2000. Today, the number of mobile devices that have internet access far outnumbers all the other devices combined. So we now have access to the internet on these mobile devices. Everybody does, everyone on the planet. Again, we know this. But if you look at the total percentage of internet traffic that now goes to a mobile phone, we're now upwards towards, this is data to 2012, we're north of 15%. So almost 20% of all internet traffic is now coming to a smartphone. And it's only increasing, as you can tell. What's also interesting is the operating system, right? We used to live in a world that was primarily Windows, maybe it was iOS on a Mac. And we've now moved to iOS and Android as being the primary operating systems. And that's important for a few reasons that I'll cover in a minute. This is a little bit hard to see, but this really talks about what people are doing with their phone. It's not as productive as you might think, right? Everything on there, if you look at it, sending a text message, downloading apps, playing games, listening to music, these are really consumer devices. There's something that we will use, yes, for work, but we'll definitely use for play. And the amount of it, and remember these kinds of content, because if you take those all together, it's going to talk about wearables and why wearables is now possible, where it wasn't a number of years ago. If you look at the inflection point in the total number of smartphones and tablets that are out there, smartphones now outnumbers everything else. So if you took all the PCs in the world, all the laptops in the world, all the tablets in the world, you added them all together, they still get dwarfed by the number of smartphones that are out there. So we're definitely living in a smartphone world. So the question I would ask is, why did the smartphone win versus the desktop, laptop, and tablet? You know, it won for a variety of reasons, and we can all come up with a whole list. But one of the things is that I have it with me, right? It's hard to put a laptop or a PC or even a tablet in my pocket as I'm walking around. If I have some spare time and I'm sitting down on the plane, it's easy to pull out my phone and work with it. It's just simple. It's catered more to your lifestyle to have your phone with you. If you look at what's in the phone during this last 5 years, right, really a revolutionary period of this new device, who's made money in this, right? Who has really capitalized on this movement? If you look what is in a smartphone today, it might surprise you to really think about what's in there. You have a display, you have touch technology, those are obvious. You have a whole bunch of sensors. You now know where I'm at. I have my GPS chip, I have my communication chips in there. I have touch sensors, I have a gyroscope, I have accelerometers, I have a compass. There is a lot of things that are in these devices. But what is interesting is not as much on these devices as the data. Right? Most of the data resides in the cloud. So now if I want to change phones, if you remember 5, 10 years ago when you tried to change a laptop, how big of a hassle was that? Right? You had to back up everything, you had to change your hardware, reinstall all the programs and hope that you didn't lose data and really wish that everything goes okay. Now how easy is it for you to change a phone? I mean, yeah, there's still some pain to it, but mostly it's pretty easy. You go to a new phone, you download the same app, it works the same, and the data's already in the cloud. So I connect and I have all my data available to me right away. It's very, very easy. So we talked about who made money from the smartphone, but the second question is what leads me to wearables, which is what is the barrier that protects the smartphone? Right? We live in a world where everybody says, I need to have my smartphone. I bet you if I asked who here has a smartphone with you, it's probably everybody. You all have a phone with you. You can't live without it. I have to bring it everywhere I go. And so we think that this device is mandatory, that we can't live with anything else but our smartphone. But my question is why? Is there anything that's on the smartphone that prevents me from moving to another device? A different shape, a watch, glasses, a circle device, anything. There's nothing that prevents me. We've already said that the data lives in the cloud, so if I'm working on a different device, I have access to that data. When we talk about the functionality here, all that functionality can be built into any other device as well. I can take a phone call from almost any device today, as long as I have that connectivity chip. So that square that we've been carrying around in our pocket that's a phone, there's nothing that prevents us from changing that. It really just comes down to the user preference. But what would drive us to do wearables? There's a few things that wearables do that our phone can't. The first one is biological. As much as I love my phone, it can't detect my heart rate on a regular basis. It can't detect my biological signals unless I have it pressed against me. So in order to collect biological information, I need to have something that's on my body. Second is there's some hard problems that get tackled with wearables. On the sensor side, if we talk with sensors first and data. One of those things are, how do I detect how many calories I've eaten? How do I detect my blood sugar level if I'm a diabetic? How do I know the proteins that are in my body if I have a medical condition? These are things that forever you wouldn't know unless you went to a doctor and you had a blood test and you had it analyzed and this whole long process. And usually you only went to the doctor because you felt sick. We're now in a world where some of these things can be detected well in advance. We can wear a watch and we can know what our heart rate's like. We can detect problems. And imagine the amount of data that we're going to be able to collect. Physicians for a long time only had the data they could collect if they did a trial or if somebody came to their office. Now a physician can have data for an entire population of people and pick up trends of heart disease well before the patient or the doctor even knew it was possible. The second is convenience. How many of you, when you go to a restaurant, take out your phone and put it on the table? I do, right? Because you don't want to sit on it, or you put it in your purse, or whatever it might be. Now I get my choice. I have the convenience. If I want my computing device to be on my wrist, great. If I want it to be on my eyes, great. If I want it to be whatever I want it to be, it's now my choice. We're moving in a world where computing is now going to be in the hands of ourselves to choose what kind of device we want. And we also can choose how fashionable, which is the last point, it is going to be. If you looked at the total amount of money that is spent on a cell phone case, right, to personalize it, the different color cases that everybody has, it's amazing how much money people spend to make their phone their own, to be a personal expression of themselves. Now if you take it to the next step where it's wearable, people are definitely going to care what kind of watch they have. Everybody already does. If anybody's wearing a watch, they pick that brand, they pick that look and feel because it expresses themselves. The clothing we wear, everything that we put on our body is an expression of ourselves. And now we have the opportunity to take the same computing benefits we've had in all these other devices and also put it on our body in a way that's fashionable and expresses ourselves. So what is Intel doing? And why is Intel talking about wearables, right? For a long time, and that's the top line, traditionally, and even today, we provided silicon, we provided processors, we provided systems to the very large vendors that you bought all these devices from, right? HP, Dell, Apple, we could list a whole long list of big companies that we would sell components to. We were the Intel Inside brand. We're doing the same thing in the wearables market, so if any of these big brands or any brand wants to have a processor in their device, we want to provide that for them. We're still working on those problems. If they want to have a system, we want to provide that for them. However, what happens now if you're in a world where the fashion brand is providing the technology? Right? When I go to my local store to buy my designer watch or shirt or whatever, is that company going to be able to just buy a processor and integrate it? They're not tech companies, right? Some are, some do a good job, but the majority of fashion brands, they're more concerned about producing something that's fashionable, and that's hard enough, let alone being a tech brand as well. So what we're doing differently in this space, and we announced at CES that we are going to have products available with opening ceremony and Barney's in New York, and there's going to be a variety of others that we haven't announced, where we're trying to be the tech firm for those companies. Right? If they want a full product, we'll create the full product for them. If they want software, if they want hardware, if they want design, if they want manufacturing, we'll provide that for them. And what's changed for us, nothing's changed for us except for the type of customer. We now have a customer that wants more from us than what we've been asked for before. Now, if you look at the wearables market as a whole, there's a lot of people playing in it, right? This isn't a space where there's only a few people. It's not just you hear the headlines about Google Glass and Apple maybe coming out with product. The world's a lot bigger than both of those two. If you look at fitness and wellness, you now have firms that never were tech players like Nike and Adidas. You look at the infotainment, you now have companies like Sony, healthcare and medical. All those firms are coming together. This space is very interesting because all of these different spaces are all converging on the same type of technology because they want it for different reasons. Some people want to entertain us on these devices. Some people want us to look good with smart devices. Some of these people want to have better healthcare and better wellness. And then obviously the industrial and military where there's also players. There's a lot of parties that are spending a lot of time on this. What has Intel done? So at CES, at the beginning of the year, these are the products that we announced. On the far upper left-hand corner, you can see Edison. So this is a system on a chip. Right now, if I am a wearables maker, I have to start from scratch, right? I have to pick my processor, I have to pick what sensors I want, I have to put them all together on a chip, and then I have to build my device. We're trying to make this easier by creating Edison and making it available for anybody who wants to create any smart device to buy this system on a chip and then build a device around it, really saving the developer a lot of time for having to put all the components together on the chip. We announced that, and it's going to be coming out later this year. It's about the size of a stamp or an SD card, so it's really small. It can go into a variety of devices, and we've seen just amazing imaginative devices being created as people just take this and create all sorts of things. We announced the second one down is Jarvis. It's a Bluetooth headset, so nothing different there, right? Everybody's had a Bluetooth headset. The difference here is this will always be on and always listening. So when I say the words, "Hello, Jarvis," it now knows I'm talking to it, and I can ask it questions. I can ask it questions like, where is my reservation for tomorrow when I'm going to a restaurant? And it knows me, it connects to my phone, it tells me the information. It's a personal assistant that is always on and it's immediate. It doesn't make a full trip back to the internet and try to Google it and come back. It's a lot quicker. The one on the bottom left-hand side is the charging bowl. If I have all these devices, do I want to have 40 different plugs going into my wall? No. So we're trying to make sure that this is easier for people to have wireless charging. This is the charging bowl where I can just throw my devices in the bowl and they'll all just charge. No more wires. On the upper right-hand corner, many of you might have noticed that we acquired a company called Basis earlier this year. Basis is a smartwatch, and it's a smartwatch that is really smart. So it has a lot of sensors in it that collects a lot of information. And so we want to make sure we can provide that to our customers as well. And then in the bottom left-hand side is an earbud. It's we all have those wires we put in our ear when we're listening to music, but now this also detects your heart rate. And so I can go running and it can detect my heart rate as well as listening to music at the same time. And so these are devices that Intel is selling, but we're not selling them directly. These aren't going to be Intel-branded devices, right? As I said before, these are devices that we're going to be providing to fashion firms. Anybody who wants to sell these devices with their own brand, their own look, their own feel, we'll just have technology that they can take. I'm not going to go a lot into this, but this just tells you how broad the wearables market is. It's easy to say wearables and think watch and we're done. It's actually a lot more complicated than that. You have wearable devices that go into your clothing that can be woven into the fabric of my garment. It can be in my shoes. I can use it for health and medical. It can deliver ECG live. There's so many different capabilities that are built into these devices. So what are some of the challenges, some of the things that we're really looking for, some of the problems that we're trying to find solutions to? And being part of Intel Capital, we're actively looking for these solutions as well. One of the biggest problems with wearables is battery. Right? How often do you want to recharge your watch? Nobody's going to wear a watch if you have to recharge it twice a day. We want things that last more than a day, right? Weeks, months. Things you can put on in a computing device that runs for a very long time. Also, how do you charge this? So you have to have better battery, but maybe you can also have better wireless charging. Right now, if you sit in this room, there's Wi-Fi. I can click on, I can connect to the internet. Why can't I click a button and also connect to electricity and deliver that electricity to my phone or my device? There's a lot of interesting technologies in this space. Also, the challenges with the form factor. Now that it goes on my body, I'm not sure if I want it to always be just a square block like we've always had. Right? The PC was square, the laptop was square, the tablet was square, the phone square. Now what about a display that's curved, that wraps around my wrist? What about a display that is see-through? If I put it into the lens of the glass, it's transparent, and yet I can still see data when I want to. Display technologies are one thing that really will help enable this category. And the third one, there's many of them, but the three that I highlighted, the third one is data. As all these things are collecting so much data, understanding how many steps I took may or may not be interesting to you. But if I can tell you aspects about your health and how to make yourself healthier without you having to do a calculation on a spreadsheet, then that's interesting. If I can tell you how many calories you've consumed and how many calories you've burned, what your net on the day is, and how much weight you gained or lost today, that may be interesting. The data that comes from these devices, I think, is what drives the whole category. If the data is not very interesting, then why do it? But if the data I get from these devices really helps me in my personal life, then it's very beneficial. So we're looking at all sorts of technologies that store the data, analyze the data, can make the data useful and more interactive, so I don't have to sift through it as a user. And so that's really the overview. I just want to give you a quick snapshot as to what Intel is doing in the space, why I think the space is interesting, and also what Intel Capital is doing.
All right, thanks for this overview, Rob. Next, just take your seat on this wonderful couch. Next, I'd like to invite Dmitry Repin, who does not need no introduction. Dmitry will facilitate the discussion with Rob, but we really want to keep this interactive, so I encourage you guys to ask questions. And Rob and I will also stick around to hang out with you guys after the event for some time, so you can ask additional questions. Dmitry?
Thank you, Max. Rob, I guess we can start a discussion. Just for those who don't know me, maybe some people, I ran Digital October, and about a year ago we had here the anniversary of the 10th year of Intel Capital being in Russia and investing. So we're happy to have Intel here in this very kind of specific and, may I say, narrow kind of domain relative to the whole Intel Capital. So if you don't mind, I'll start with a couple of questions, and then maybe we can open up to the audience. Wearable technology. Do you think that the next exciting companies, perhaps in the Intel Capital portfolio, maybe not, will come from new kind of very fancy phenomenal sensors, or from a clever use of the data from the kind of existing sensors that we all know, we already have in our smartwatches or phones?
Yeah, I think definitely there will be some sensor companies that are going to be very successful, especially when you tackle the hard problems. The ones like that we talked about, right? Tracking calories or blood sugar level, things that are very, very hard. Those companies will make money. But I think the majority of the big companies that will come out of this industry are the ones that are going to be able to resonate with the consumer. This is a consumer market for the most part. People are buying wearable devices as a consumer because it looks good, it feels good, it gives them valuable information. So I think those consumer device companies are going to make the majority of the money in this space.
I guess Nike is one of the good examples of the consumer device company, but I guess in this case we saw one of the few examples when somebody came into this market and then withdrawn from this market. Do you know the story? Can you kind of tell us why do you think Nike pulled out?
Well, I'll give you my opinion. And my opinion is that it's really hard, and I've talked about this before, it's really hard to be a fashion company and a tech company. So when Nike came up with the Fuel Band, it was a bigger success than they had anticipated. A lot of people started using it. But that means they had to make a decision. Are they going to continue to be a hardware company? Because then they would have to come up with Fuel Band 2.0 and 3.0, bigger and better and faster, and at the same time be a fashion brand, which is really hard to do in and of itself, coming up with the next generation of apparel. I think at the end of the day, they decided that they wanted to make their customer happy, and they didn't care as much about being in the hardware business. That's actually why Intel is that matches our strategy, right? Our strategy is that these fashion firms want to stay fashion firms, and they need a partner like us to help them with the technology. So I think Nike's a great example of a fashion company that didn't want to become a pure tech company.
So you think that Nike might be a client of yours in the near future?
I think they're going to integrate. They want to own the data on top, right? They want to own the customer. They want me to be loyal. If I'm a Nike customer, they want me to continue to buy Nike goods. And so they want to have that information. I don't think they care as much about who creates the hardware. Would we love to? Sure. But I think they also want to integrate with other wearable devices. I think there's going to be plenty of wearable devices for them to integrate into.
Talking about these sensors, so you mentioned heart rate, also the medical, like a glucose level. Do you see anything as maybe as kind of far off as eye tracking or some of the things which kind of observe your behavior or measure your behavior from a point of view that you don't anticipate right away? So do you see this maybe unusual angles coming from the wearable market?
I do, and I've met a lot of companies that are trying to do that, right? They detect the patterns of your movement, they detect your eye tracking, they know exactly what you're looking at, right? It's a little scary when you think about it, but the technology, when it gets applied to your body, knows a lot about you. It knows what you're looking at, how you're breathing, when your heart is racing, when it's slowed down. It's ultimately the user gets to decide if they want to use it, but there's a lot of companies trying to make that possible.
But just again, talking about the eye tracking, because I used to be kind of a neuroscientist mixed with something else, but I know they can tell a whole lot of stuff about the person through the eye tracking. Like you can measure pupil dilation, so you can basically measure whether you're lying, whether you're interested, whether a lot of things. So can you just describe maybe some ways that companies are approaching this so we can have this eye tracking information easily kind of available for us?
Yeah, I know there's companies that are working on having eye tracking in the goggles, like the Google Glass or the other heads-up displays. They start out with using it as a way to interface. Right? If you know Google Glass, if you put on Google Glass, if I want to interact with it, I have to bob my head or I have to touch the side of the glasses. Because there's no mouse, there's no keyboard. What the companies I've seen are trying to use your eyes as your interface. So I can look at a menu and it selects the menu. I can select keyboard by looking at keyboard and then I can type. It's that kind of camera in the glass that looks back at my eye and uses the science to know exactly what I'm looking at with great precision. That's how it started. I'm sure it's going to go a long ways as to understanding pupil dilation.
Yeah, because that's the same thing people done 20 years ago, right? It's just been a little bit bulkier, a little bit. So I just wondering if there are kind of any really new ways to measure or track the eye.
Yeah, I think the new part is that we now have consumer devices that people put on their face that have cameras and compute in them. So I don't know if the science is new, but I do know that the fact that people will be wearing glasses that have cameras that are pointing at their eye, that I don't know.
That is pretty exciting.
Yes,
that you have to have some sort of a bigger device, infrared camera and another camera, and also infrared, some sort of LED or something, and then also infrared camera.
Yeah, I think technology is catching up with science. We've had science to measure eye dilation. We've had science to measure your heartbeat. We've had all this science. Now we have the technology that is easy enough for the consumer to wear and now track the things that we already knew scientifically. And I think it will lead to us learning more scientifically than we've known before.
Thank you. I guess with that I'll probably ask a question from the audience, and I know that there are some people who have some wearables on them, so they must be the early part of this industry. Any questions? I'll run with the mic. And introduce yourself, just in case.
My name is Alexei. I'm working for a pharmaceutical company, my contact. And we have wearable devices, heads and different, I have Jumbo, Max, I have Fitbit, yes, and my wife wears Shine. So we are testing different devices. I have two questions, to be honest. And the first question is quite just for thinking. So before 2007, we had a lot of form factors of mobile device. We all remember this, but now we have just one. Yes, so these iPhones, Samsung, Sony, all companies provide us with one form factor because it's maybe just the most useful one. And do you expect that all these devices which we have now and which we will have in the future also will be in one most useful, most interesting form factor? Maybe some pineapple company will provide us some new revolutionary form factor which will be the most interesting.
I believe there's going to be a lot of different form factors because the users can be able to choose them. But I'm not naive, right? I understand that once there's a big success out there, there's a lot of imitators. So if somebody comes out with a form factor that's tremendously popular, I'm sure there'll be a lot of other people that copy that form factor. But I don't think it's going to be only one. I think when you're wearing things on different parts of your body, that alone requires you to have different form factors. Right? What goes on my watch, that form factor isn't going to look too good if I put it on my eyes. It's not going to look too good if I put it on my shirt. I think the fact that it's wearable itself is going to demand multiple different form factors. But obviously when something becomes popular, people copy
it. Can I ask one question? So we know that exist different wearable devices which could measure heart rate, yes, and others, but do you know some examples of device which could measure effectively the level of sugar, of glucose in blood without incision, without, how to say, yes, without invasion, and maybe some other parameters of human biochemistry?
Yeah, and I think you've hit on a category that's really hard, which is understanding blood without drawing blood, right? And I haven't met a company, I've looked a lot, and if you know a company, please let me know. But when it comes to a company that can measure blood sugar level for a diabetic without a pinprick, I haven't met that, no. But I think it's a tremendous opportunity. And I think we're close. There's companies working on it, but they're not accurate enough yet. But the fact that they are close tells me that we're not too far away.
Probably recent experiments with lenses for analysis.
That's true. That's correct. There are people that say that if you have there's contact lenses you can put in that measure blood glucose. Yeah, thank you for that.
We've heard of that, but it's not the easiest one, the easiest way, because you have to implement these things in your eye.
That's right.
So it's not just,
Pushing to most experiments with, say, laser technologies and so on are still more robust, I think.
Well, like I said, if you know of one, let me know.
I have more questions.
Hello. Short question. Do you know a company called MC10 Inc? They, like about 3 years ago, yeah? Epidermal Electronics, yeah?
Yeah, I don't know them well, but I know of them, yes.
Yeah, so what's going on with Epidermal?
Well, like I said, I don't know them well. I haven't been talking with them over the last...
No, I mean, 3 years ago, University of Illinois and them announced Epidermal wearables, like EEG and all that. You know, things film, yeah? sticker basically, disposable.
Yes.
And it was 3 years ago, and the question is like, do you know any?
So I've seen a lot of companies that have the, whether it's called a tattoo or it sticks to your body, there's a number of companies that have that technology. It can measure certain biometrics, heart rate, a few other things. What hasn't happened in this market yet, in the wearables market, is the consumer hasn't decided what they want to use, right? If I looked across this audience, this is a wearables topic, all I do is cover wearables. You're all interested in wearables, but if I asked you what wearables you actually have on you, we have an up here, we have a Fitbit, we don't have a lot. I see a number of people wearing glasses, but I don't see any Google Glass. I don't think the consumer has found a device that they really have embraced yet. And I think the same goes with the stick-on-able and the tattooable. I think there are segments where it's very applicable. If I'm a medical patient and that helps me and I don't have to carry a big box around, absolutely would I use it. But would a mass consumer use it? I don't know. I haven't seen people use it so far. But that doesn't mean they won't. As these things become smarter and easier to use, I think it makes it easier for a consumer to adopt.
My name is Alex. My question will be about B2B markets for wearables. My team has just released a working prototype of an emotion tracker. It's on my right hand. And one way we are going to go is to set business intelligence on physical emotional status of workers for corporates. We are talking with the Citibank about their trading desks. You know, on Monday morning, not all traders are feeling well. The hard weekends, they have hard weekends. So you understand the value for the customer. Maybe there are some other ways for us to go. What do you think about it?
I think you're addressing the key to the wearables area, which is providing value, right? It's more than just tracking the number of steps. You have to tell me something useful. And what you're trying to do is tell the customer something useful. What is this person going to be effective or not in their job today because of their mood? Now, who knows what problems people are really going to try to embrace and buy, but the fact that you're trying to solve problems, I think that's what will drive this market. A lot more than just a bunch of data.
What's the personal foresight about percentage of the B2C and B2B markets maybe in coming 5 or 10 years for wearables?
My experience has been that the consumer generally adopts something first, and then the enterprise follows. I think we've all seen this, right? Everybody's had their own personal cell phone before their work let them use that phone. I'm not very bullish on the fact that the enterprise will be the first one to lead the way. So I think there's going to be certain industries where the enterprise will find it tremendously valuable to use it, but I think this starts with the consumer.
Thank you.
If you don't mind, I also have a question. We don't see hands raised. Education. Do you think that there will be some interesting, or maybe you already know, applications of wearables in education that can really enhance learning experience, or I don't know, improve learning experience, or maybe add some new quality to that?
Absolutely, and I'm just thinking off the top of my head here, so I'm sure there's many other ways I haven't thought of, but imagine if I have classes that when I look at an equation, it can tutor me, right? I'm not quite getting it, I'm sitting in the classroom, all my classmates understand, I don't, right? I'm not quite understanding. Maybe the fact that I'm connected to the internet and connected to a computing system can help me learn quicker. It can help cater the knowledge in a way that I understand. I'm sure there's many other avenues, but computing is already, this isn't new to wearables, right? Computing has already helped us learn faster. It's already helped us in the classroom. This is just a new form factor to allow us to connect to that information.
You wear a device which senses when you're puzzled, right? On a wrist, and then it shows you the answer.
I was surprised asking the question, to be honest.
Any question?
No, I was going to add about the languages. I think you had a great example earlier.
Yeah, we met a company, a fantastic company that was built initially for the visually impaired. Right, so the visually impaired can't see, they have a hard time reading, and so how do they navigate themselves in life? And there was a company that we met that allows the user to wear something on their eyeglasses, it's just a clip-on, that I can point to text and it starts reading it to them. Well, now take it a step further where now it can interpret, right? So I'm not fortunate enough to be able to speak Russian. So when I go in the streets of Moscow, I don't understand any of the signs. Wouldn't it be great if I could just point to a sign or look at a sign and it could be interpreted for me? How much faster could I learn in a different country? How much closer can it bring different cultures and different languages together? If we can understand each other quicker, if I can read languages that I don't normally read, these devices will help that. In fact, they're already starting to help it, because technologies that were built for the visually impaired, for the hearing impaired, are now being applied to the consumer, which is
and the language impaired.
The language impaired, yes. That would be
any questions?
Hey, Anastasia again. So I have a question about accuracy of the data that bracelets and glasses and stuff like that collect. So for example, I have this jawbone, and this one night I slept for like 4 hours, but when I connected it to my phone, it said that I slept for a blissful 8 hours, which was absolutely incorrect. So the question is, are these wearable devices, are they improving? How fast? And do you feel like some companies just follow the trend, but they don't really provide a product that is, trustworthy? And
yes, and yes. So yes, the market is moving very fast. These devices are getting better, they're getting smarter. As we solve some of those big problems I gave you before with battery and processing power, you now are able to let these devices do more work. And yes, there are a lot of people that follow to make money, not necessarily having the highest quality device. If you've noticed, most of the devices in the wearable space are currently for the consumer and not for healthcare. Part of that is because in order to be a healthcare device, you have to have a high quality data, something that's very reliable. We are close in some areas. Can we get a very reliable ECG reading from a wearable? Yeah, we can. Can we get a blood sugar level for a diabetic? No, we can't. So there's some areas that we're able to do well today, and there's many areas that we were not able to do well, and we have to guess that a little bit. But the good thing is there's a lot of big companies with a lot of smart people that are trying to solve these problems. And it's funny how technology works. Once the spotlight comes on a certain category, everybody rushes to that category and tries to create solutions, and things go faster. I think that's what's happening with wearables today. Why today versus a year ago, I don't know. But today, a lot of big companies are focusing a lot of time and energy and a lot of money on this category, which means it's going to be faster that we find solutions. And it's going to be sooner that we're able to solve hard problems. That's the best I can do to predict.
Just the life hack, a friend of mine wears at the same time jawbone and Fitbit just to kind of calibrate and see which one tracks his kind of steps and energy more carefully, more correctly.
The competition drives better data, right? Is whoever comes out with the one that is the most accurate, more people will flock in that direction. So I think there's a natural tendency for these companies to want to be better and to try to be better. But you're right. Today, there's some inaccuracies in some of this.
Yeah, I guess we have time for one more question. You already have, I'm sure that there will be time afterwards.
Hi, my name is Mikhail Shagiev, and you look pretty well fitted, but I think you agree that indoor fitness is very boring, right? Very. I was struggling with this for years, as you probably can see. And so we came up with one thing that my team is now developing. It's a set of the software and gaming for the devices in fitness that connects to existing number of devices such as accelerators, Nike Plus and Fitbit and others, get the sense of the movement, and then based on that provide some social gaming and like virtual environments to make it less boring, right? Do you think, is there any, I used to work in Intel a while ago, but now I don't know who in particular in Intel is now, can be helpful for, can be a good contact for me, for this team, right?
Well, the good thing is we, as of last year, we now have a business unit that is focused 100% on wearables, right? If you would ask me this 2 years ago, I wouldn't have an answer. But we have one business unit that is entirely focused on this category, and I work with that group quite often, so you can work through me and kind of connect to the right people.
One question from us. But answering to your question, I suppose that, just because I have the same device, I suppose that concerning lifestyle, it's not so important to measure it very accurate. For instance, because, okay, you slept 4 hours, besides 8 hours, it's not so important, but for medical devices it will be critical. Yes, but for instance, for me, this device is useful because it can track my lifestyle, because in daily routine I just don't want to think about it. I forgot how many hours I slept, how many activities I did, and sometimes it just can show you that you just eat too much. Yes. Besides, your activity is not enough. So my question is, do you know some cases now, because we are working in a pharmaceutical company, do you know some cases, some maybe very interesting medical device which is useful, which is maybe on development or just in implemented stage, which is, in your opinion, some kind of revolution? I don't know, for heart disease, for pulmonary disease, I don't know, for any.
Yeah, I honestly, I don't have a great answer for you. I spend the majority of my time looking for something that's going to fit the consumer segment today. Do we want to provide solutions for the medical arena? Absolutely. But we start with what we have first and we move. So I don't have a great answer for you, unfortunately. I'm not a medical device expert.
Can I provide some sort of my personal answer to the question? I think that invasive devices which can supply some medical substance into the blood under the specific program probably adopted for person's behavior and put and placed into the very small container which probably has several small parts for the control, and based on developed from biocompatible material like porous silicon or porous aluminium, can be probably the next interesting thing for medicine.
I think we have time for one last question if anyone wants to ask one. Otherwise, I think Misha here has to run, but Rob and I will hang out here for 10 to 15 minutes in case you guys have more questions. Oh, here's one last one.
So I have one small question about how does Intel support any activities in wearable industries, for example, for new entrepreneurs or maybe investigators? Do you have some programs, some activities, so many, possibly some labs for entrepreneurs or some students?
We do have some, right? So one of the things we talked about earlier today was the Make It Wearable challenge, right? So we are trying to encourage entrepreneurs from everywhere to enter this contest, to get their ideas on board, and it's a contest where the best ideas are going to get cash, which also helps any young entrepreneur. We also have Intel Capital, like Max and here, we have people all over the globe who work with young companies, they give advice to young companies. We have that as well. And then from the technology side, we have, we're trying to create products that will make it easier for you to develop hardware and software. That's a start. Could we do more? Yes, obviously we could. But those are some things that I can highlight that we're doing right now that may be interesting.
All right, last one.
The very last. the recent iPhone, it has this M7 co-processor, which allows the phone to replace most functionality of this wearable bracelets. What do you think? Is it the new trend that is going to kill the bracelets, or is it going to change the market or something? What's your opinion?
Well, I think the great thing is you get to choose. I think the way this market is going, you can choose whether you want to wear, if you want to just carry a phone, or if you want to wear a watch that does everything the phone does, or if you want to wear something else. You get to choose. The consumer gets to decide what shape the device is, how we want to wear it. I don't think, that was the purpose of my slides before, was the functionality that's in the phone, there's nothing special about that square. All the capabilities that are in the phone can be in a different shape, on a different part of your body, and I think at the end of the day, the consumer gets to decide. You may decide that you only want to keep the phone is good enough, and that square thing that you put in your pocket, that's perfect for you. Somebody else might decide that they don't want that. They want all that computing to be on their wrist. Somebody else might decide that when I'm home, I like this device. When I'm on the road, I like a different device. I think the great thing about this whole movement, whether you call it wearables or Internet of Things, is just choice. Compute has gotten down to such a small and powerful form factor that it's given us the choice of how we want to consume it. And I think that's the great part about it.
All right. With that, I'd like to thank you all guys for coming out here on a Friday night and asking all these wonderful, intelligent questions. If you have anything else you'd like to ask, you're always welcome to reach out to me or Rob here. We're going to hang out here for another 10 to 15 minutes, so if any of you have more questions you want to ask them, and please welcome me. Join me in thanking Rob and Dimitri here and Digital October for hosting this event here. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did.